everyone, this is PK Entertainment and we are back again. And here now we have another video for you, and I will just give some post-reflections on the recent passing of Hulk Hogan and how I feel he was one of the biggest cultural transcendent figures from the 1980s. So this of course comes from the recent news of his death, which was confirmed back on Thursday, the 24th of July 2025. Whilst the full details haven't been disclosed, the cause has been related to cardiac arrest that he suffered at his home in Florida. And it was also referred to that he had been suffering certain health issues prior to his passing. And many tributes and condolences have all flooded in, most people fully acknowledging his impact and standing within wrestling and entertainment, though at the same time there has also been an addressing of the various other controversies that certainly came within the later phases of his career. Now when we look back at his life and Hogan, who was originally born as Terry Jean Bollea back in August the 14th, 1953 in Augusta, Georgia. And he initially entered the world of professional wrestling back in 1977 in Florida under the character name of The Destroyer. And he would go on to win his first wrestling title with the NWA Southeastern Heavyweight Championship in Alabama and later on in Tennessee. But it was really in 1979 when the legacy truly began, where he was introduced to Vince McMahon, who of course we all know as the owner and promoter of the back then World Wrestling Federation. Being introduced, he recruited Terry with the stage name as Hulk Hogan, and after several runs and various hiatuses from the organisation, it was really within the 1980s that Hogan would eventually rise to prominence. Firstly, of course, with the cameo appearance as Thunderlips in Rocky III, which saw him against Rocky in the ring in a charity match. The movie itself went on to become one of the biggest hits of 1982 and certainly helped introduce Hogan to a mass audience. And from there on, he went to become the face of the WWF, winning the World Heavyweight Championship in 1984 and going on to become an icon. We look at him with his famous yellow and red outfits, the various moves including the infamous leg drop, the charging up as his opponents was defeating him and beating him down and you thought Hogan was losing the match, and then he would resuscitate himself by charging around the ring, giving that sense of re-energization, very much hulking out. And it was this whole image and persona that created very much the era of Hulkmania. And Hogan would go on to become the most famous wrestler, the face and icon of the entire sport. And all I can tell you is, as a kid growing up within the 1980s, as soon as you mentioned wrestling, the first person that you would think of would be Hulk Hogan. We look at him with his 6'7" frame, his muscular shape, and his whole intensity, the very deep, gruff voice. As a kid, I grew up wanting to be just like Hulk Hogan. In terms of the overall image and all of the masculinity that he transcended, he was very much a fabric of the testosterone, masculine heroism that was seen all over movies and entertainment and television right throughout the 1980s. And yes, as I started this video, I would go as far as to say that Hogan was one of the most culturally transcendent figures of the decade. Now, it may be hard for the current generation to look at him in that way, especially as I mentioned before, the infamous controversies that followed his career. But if you grew up within the 1980s, Hulk Hogan truly was a massive deal. And he really did bring the sport into the mainstream, drawing many eyes, both as a sports fan, a non-sports fan, and also as a casual viewer. And that is a typical example of what we call truly transcendent. Somebody who is able to truly excel in whatever field that they are in, and also attract the attention of somebody who has absolutely no interest whatsoever in the activity, but whenever that person appears on screen, they will take a second look. And that's how you really grow an industry or a sport. And it was another signal of also, as well as the physicality, also the rugged charisma that Hogan brought to wrestling and also entertainment in general. And for me personally, the 80s to the mid-90s was my overall favourite era of wrestling. Now, people will look at this era and mock it for being over the top and cartoonish, but I preferred the very much more superhero personalities, where the wrestlers were very distinctive and impressionable and eye-catching, both in terms of their look, their name, their personalities and their appearance. We look at the likes of Macho Man Randy Savage, Jake the Snake, Andre the Giant, Legion of Doom, certainly The Undertaker in his earlier phases, Ric Flair, of course, Mr. Perfect, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and perhaps my most favourite overall during this era, which was the Ultimate Warrior. And all of these wrestlers are really larger than life, much more memorable and iconic than what we have seen later on in the late 90s and early to mid 2000s within wrestling. And Hogan really was the complete epicenter of that whole era of superhero fantasy. Now, certainly over the late 90s, throughout the 2000s, wrestling has tried to go for this more raw, realistic, and I would dare say nihilistic approach. But that type of era never really appealed to me as much. We would watch these iconic wrestlers from the 1980s, fully aware that wrestling wasn't real, but that wasn't the point. It was embracing the adventure and the fantasy and very much the spectacle. And wrestlers like Hogan were also very good in terms of the action and the spectacle that they provided in the ring, as well as the personalities and appeal that they provided outside the ring. Now, yes, I fully understand here that there is the darker, deconstructive side to Hulk Hogan in terms of his actual life and his personality. Very much it started when he joined WCW in his heel turn as the leader of the trio of the NWO, the New World Order, alongside Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. And that was very much one of the first signs of the more rebellious, anti-establishment mentality that many people were connecting to more so with wrestling. And yes, of course, we have the controversial racial slurs of his daughter, Brooke Haven's boyfriend, in a leaked audio back in 2015. We have the controversial sex tape of him and his friend's wife, which was posted by Gorka Media back in 2007. And later on, we have the endorsements of President Trump. So I fully understand people who, when addressing his life, will concentrate very much so on the darker controversies. And to be fair, that has some warrant and some merit. We cannot completely glaze over these incidents. When assessing any major celebrity's life, I believe you do have to focus on the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I would in never way, shape, or form try to paint Hogan as some sort of perfect, all-imposing hero of human society. But when I reflect on Hulk Hogan, I do much more want to look at the 1980s super mega wrestler that he was. For me, a true icon, certainly not only of wrestling, but of a whole generation of fans. And in many ways, when we look back at the 80s, still for me, the best era in terms of movies, entertainment, and just overall positive culture overall. Hulk Hogan really was one of the major personalities of that mindset and mentality. And that is certainly more the inspiration and the icon that I prefer to remember and refer to when looking back at his overall life. So just again, a major, sad, tragic passing away for certainly for me the most famous wrestler of all time in Hulk Hogan. Many condolences going out to both his family and friends at this very sad occasion. So those are my overall thoughts and feelings when looking back at Hulk Hogan and his recent passing away. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you have any other further movies, television series, or any other topics within the pop entertainment and culture scene that you'd like to see me cover within the channel, then also let me know within the comments and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit and like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. And that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.